Night Nook Publishing presents Loss of the Unguarded, written and read by Tracy Daly. Part 1, Chapter 1, August 14th. It's been 10 years since I made the biggest mistake of my life. I know I can't go back and change things. Not even the original angels could turn back time, but I can't help wondering, what if, especially on the anniversary of the night my family disappeared? Tonight the questions swirl with a new intensity. I couldn't keep my eyes closed without the unknown attacking me like a physical thing in the darkness. I'm too old to hide under the covers, and as nice as my new foster family is, I wouldn't interrupt their sleep. The Creator knows Pat needs hers. When my eyes refused to close and the whirling questions made my heart beat nearly out of my chest, I decided I had to get everything out of my head and down on paper. Maybe then I would have a fair chance at battling the terror inside me. I pulled out this leather notebook, a gift from Pat when I first came to live here 3 months ago. She said that we all needed external storage space to help us process everything. I didn't think I'd need that. After all, I'm not an ordinary. Not a normal human girl. I'm a descendant. I have the knowledge and energy of creation written into my DNA. I shouldn't need a paper and pen to help me sleep, but tonight I'm desperate. I feel so alone. What would my 18th birthday have looked like if I hadn't been afraid? If I'd stayed to face the future instead of running from it? How different would my life be? Both our lives. All our lives? Was it all my fault? I don't have all the answers. The things I do know shouldn't be written down. They are the secrets of the Descendants, and the war that will eventually tear the world apart. But I have to get all of this out of my head. Treadon Nelson. Treadon caught the football as a half-ton of human mass surged toward him, a collective hive mind with one objective: to destroy him. He avoided conflict as a rule, but the freedom he felt on the football field gave him a confidence that didn't exist anywhere else. When the leather hit his fingers and the defensive line surged forward, cleats digging into the ground, his mind echoed with 3 words: bring it on. He knew the left tackle would break through the line an instant before it happened. Treadon noticed the safety relax his stance as the crowd roared. The cornerback favored his right knee. Treadon saw it all, knew exactly how each player would move, and why. He pulled back his arm and let the ball fly. Jaron Calavan caught the ball, and Rachel Sampaio made the block. Touchdown! Game over. They'd won their first game of the year, but as soon as the cheers went up and the stands emptied onto the field, Treadon's freedom disappeared. He pulled back into himself and kept his head down. There were too many people, and it wasn't the physical noise that bothered him. It was the constant messages being tossed around that he wasn't supposed to hear or see. The facial expressions and body movements and voice inflections created a language as clear as a podcast through noise-canceling headphones. He understood things that no one meant for him to hear. He'd learned to hide it, bury it deep, ignore the language other people knew was there. But only he could speak fluently. He'd reacted to things people hadn't really said enough times to know that he was different. Jaron caught up to him on the sidelines. "Where are you going, hero?" Jaron asked, knocking his helmet against Treadon's. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. His voice barely carried over the noise of the crowd. "Take a bow." "I'm not the hero," Treadon said, leading in close and yelling so the words would carry. "That was Rachel. You would have been flattened by that guy if she hadn't made the block." "Are you guys talking about me?" Rachel jogged up, pulling her helmet off, her long black ponytail swishing back and forth, her face split with a smile. There was nothing timid or petite about Rachel Sampaio, and her confidence won her friends and admirers both on and off the field. "If not, you should be. You owe me 7 laps for saving your ass today." She poked Jaron in the chest. "You only bet laps?" Treadon asked. "His dad drives a Bentley. You should have bet $6,000 for every block. This guy's going to get bought out by Oregon because you make him look so good." Rachel kept a smile on her face, but when Treadon mentioned Jaron's dad, she dropped her eyes and tightened her shoulders. "Don't read into it." Treadon turned his attention to Jaron to avoid the tension he felt from Rachel when it came to Xander Calavan. Treadon didn't think Jaron's dad was so bad. At least he showed up to the football games. That was more than Treadon could say for his mom and Gabe. A couple of guys from the other team walked by, scowling after the loss. One of them saw Rachel and spit on the field. "I think you forgot your skirt." Jaron's fist tightened on his helmet. his dark skin going tight around the knuckles from the pressure. He stepped forward, but Rachel pulled him back as the other football players disappeared into the crowd. "I don't need you to protect me. I'm your tight end, remember?" Rachel said, shoving Jaren playfully in the chest. "I block for you." "Let me give you a ride home," Jaren said, "just to make sure they don't bother you again." Rachel paused, considering. Treadon kept his head down. He liked Rachel and Jaren, but they had this swirling, complicated relationship that gave Treadon a headache trying not to read all the messages the two of them were sending. Even trying not to read into their private feelings, Treadon knew exactly why Rachel shook her head. Xander Calivan was at the game and would be driving Jaren home in the Bentley. Rachel didn't want anything to do with her best friend's dad. "I've got a ride," Rachel said, giving them a wave with her helmet. "Senior year starts next week, and we've started with a win. Let's keep the streak going." Jaren watched Rachel walk away. His normally straight posture sagged a little, his hands swinging at his side. Treadon tried hard to ignore the noise. Everyone had a story. Everyone had things about themselves they didn't want other people to see. It wasn't fair that it felt like people were yelling those things at him all the time. He felt like he was watching the world through a one-sided mirror. He could see out, but no one could see him. "Good game," Treadon said, needing to get away from the crowd and the people and the voices. "I'll see you next week." "Can I pick you up?" Jaren asked. "I'm getting my own car, and I want to show it off. But I don't think Rachel will appreciate it." Treadon wanted to say no. He wanted to say that he didn't need a ride to school as a senior in high school, but they only had one car, and his mom needed it for work. It would probably be a big help. "Yeah, sure," Treadon said as he backed away. "I want to see this new car of yours." Jaren nodded, waving as he joined the celebrating crowd. Treadon headed toward the parking lot, keeping his head down, but something still caught his eye. A trick in the flow of bodies. A disturbance in the normal ebb of traffic. His stomach flipped, and he felt a wave of dizziness. The ground tilted like he was on a boat, rocking on waves in a storm. He closed his eyes for a second, trying to shake the feeling. When he opened his eyes again, his focus zeroed in on the anomaly. A girl, walking against the crowd. Treadon felt another wave of nausea, his mind fighting against him, telling him to look away. He fought the sensation. The crowd milled around him, people bumping into his shoulder, forcing their way past. Someone shoved him. "Watch where you're going." The words were gobbled like sound traveling through water. Another bump on his shoulder, and Treadon realized what was wrong. The girl should be experiencing the same thing. Anyone can walk the wrong way through a crowd, but not without getting bumped and jostled. This girl wasn't touching anyone, and no one was touching her. It was like she walked through the crowd in a bubble of protection around her. Treadon moved forward, watching her. She kept her head down, studying a piece of paper. Not a single person seemed to notice her. She moved unheeded, untouched. The chaotic scramble of people parted unconsciously for her. She walked evenly, no break in her stride. Then he saw a group of football players from the other team, shoving and joking as they headed toward their bus. One of the football players jumped on the shoulders of another, messing around, trying to pull the other to the ground. The girl was walking right into their path. They wouldn't see her. She couldn't see them. She was only a few steps away from him. "Watch out!" Treadon said the words at the same time as he reacted. He jumped forward and grabbed her arm, pulling her out of the way. He pressed her against the wall of the school, sheltering her from the crowd with his body as the football players ran into him. "Watch it!" they called. One of them flipped him off, but they kept moving toward their bus. Treadon looked down at the girl to ask if she was okay, but the words caught in his throat. Her eyes were wide, her fists pulled up to her face, her shoulders arched in a boxer's stance, like she'd just seen her worst nightmare, and she wasn't going down without a fight.